Animals and animal parts are trafficked at an incredibly heavy rate through Texas. In fact, we're one of the top 4 locations in the world, in the country, for animals being trafficked. And we're talking about monkeys and amphibians and birds and reptiles.
Wow. Okay.
Welcome to the Hidden City Podcast. I'm Grant.
And I'm Doug, and we're here to share some of the incredible stories and people from Oak Cliff that you might not know.
We're going to sit down with some of the visionaries, craftsmen, and business owners who have shaped Oak Cliff into what it is today.
Oak Cliff is on the south bank of the Trinity River, a few miles south of downtown Dallas. While technically it was part of Dallas, it was its own city for a long time, and it still has that independent spirit.
We'll dive into the history and the spirit of this place, exploring the different challenges and successes that defined it.
This is The Hidden City, a podcast about the people and the stories that make Oak Cliff extraordinary. Welcome to this episode of the Hidden City Podcast. Today we have a guest on the show. His name is Chris Corpus. He's the Senior Director of Conservation and Community Impact for the Dallas Zoo. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks. I'm so stoked to be here. I'm a big fan.
Thanks, man. Well, thanks for listening along with us.
Yeah.
We've been enjoying this. It's been fun.
That's awesome. Well, Chris, you're part of the zoo and play a role there. I think we want to kind of establish the episode and tell listeners the Dallas Zoo, it's the oldest and the largest zoo in Texas.
Yeah.
Can you kind of give us a little bit more of the story of it or what's there?
Yeah. We, Texas, we love to say like we're the biggest, we're the strongest, we're the
always,
most something.
That's
right?
always our most important adjective.
I like the oldest.
Oldest is
pretty
cool
good.
too. I don't mind that.
It's pretty exciting to say, and not just in Texas, but one of the oldest in the country. It's pretty exciting to sort of know that legacy of the zoo. It started in the late 1800s as a very small institution with 2 white-tailed deer and a mountain lion. That's what
I heard. Yeah.
That's an amazing start. I love that.
The city of Dallas bought that from somewhere in Colorado, I think.
The history of the zoo is something that there's a gap right now in our understanding of our history. Like, as it was a city-run institution for the longest time, and it's now a publicly owned, privately operated nonprofit institution.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
So
cool.
The Dallas Zoo Management Company is who everybody is that works there.
Okay.
And then the Dallas Zoo itself is owned by the city still. But back in 2014, I think it was, the zoo switched from that city-managed, city-owned to becoming this separate organization operated. And it really freed us up to start to do a ton of expansion and improvement of the organization, sort of get out of the guidelines of needing to run as a city operation and being able to be a little more flexible, a little more movable. And
It sounds like a great combination of publicly owned, privately operated.
Yeah.
It's a nice synergy between those two things, I think.
Yeah, it's a really great way for an institution like ours to get to work because we're still a public service. We're still here to do something for our community and for the larger wildlife conservation community. But it frees up the city not to have to worry about like all the things you have to think about when you're doing conservation.
It's a big thing, big undertaking. Well, so the zoo, it's in Oak Cliff. I mean, it's 106 acres.
I was shocked when I learned that. 106 acres.
Huge.
I mean,
it's huge.
Well, and
so
that's
big.
just the part that like publicly is walkable.
Yeah,
There's
tell
actually
us
even
more
more
about it.
behind the scenes of the backstage areas where there's animal holding areas, there's barns, there's a veterinary hospital, there's a giant commissary just for food operations for the animals. It's a 24-hour operation of taking care of animals and prepping and cleaning and security and all the things.
But there's a huge staff too. I mean, I imagine.
Yeah, it's roughly 400-ish full-timers.
Wow.
A lot of part-timers at the zoo, and then we have interns in and out and contractors all the time. You see the expansion work happening over on Ewing right now, and we have lots of additional expansion we're in a big campaign right now for expanding internally into some of those areas that are currently off exhibit that will become public areas again.
Oh, wow.
Really excited about.
Wait, that's cool.
Yeah.
Can you preview anything that's coming out?
Okay. Yeah. So it's a massive capital campaign, and we got a lot of that funding through, or the start of that funding through the bond, the Dallas bond that went through last year. And we're going to be expanding to have one of the largest penguin habitats in the country.
Cool.
Which we're really excited about because that's a huge part of our conservation work in South Africa. we're working towards having rhinos back at the zoo again and getting back involved in and rhino conservation here in state. And what we're working towards is having a mixed species habitat with rhinos, which means not just rhinos in a yard, but rhinos and cheetahs and other species that could safely live with predators in a space like that. Yeah. Wow. So being the largest zoo in Texas, it gives us an opportunity to mimic the type of space that's needed to have animals being able to live a healthy, positive welfare life and awesome. Be an ambassador for their species.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's exciting to hear that because it does seem like there's so much going on in that little area right there with the deck park. You've got just all these new exciting developments. Yeah, it's cool.
They're doing all sorts of great stuff. Yeah. That whole area is like the city has, I've seen bits and pieces of these plans that the city has for that area. And if you imagine Ewing 5 to 10 years from now, looking very similar to Bishop Arts, with a walkable area from the Dart past the zoo and even through the zoo up into the deck park, into on the other side of the highway, bringing back life to where, right now it's a lot of those sort of decrepit buildings or old motels and
people walking around and like it's a district of its own.
Yeah.
I'm sure the zoo's excited about that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Even, I envision a day when people are just coming to spend the whole day. Like they want to be there at the park. They want to go to some, a music event. They'll spend some time at the zoo. They'll do some shopping. I think it'll be a really invigorating way of bringing the communities on both sides of the highway.
I can't wait. That sounds like a great Saturday right there.
Yeah, that's an exciting time for sure.
Well, so Chris, tell us how you got interested in conservation. Like what initially sparked that passion for you, and how did you kind of land in Oak Cliff and end up in this role?
Absolutely. It's sort of a windy road. I have interns sometimes ask me that same question, like, how do I get to do the job that you do?
Right.
And I never recommend anybody take the path I took because it is so windy. I actually started my career as a journalist in Chicago many years ago. I went to school at the University of Illinois, and I was studying broadcast journalism.
Nice.
Actually print journalism at University of Illinois, but then transferred up to Columbia College in Chicago. And I was able to start working as a stringer in the city, which means I was a videographer running around sort of like a contractor for the news agencies downtown and covering car accidents and house fires and interviews and all that sort of stuff. And after I graduated, I continued to work there, but that's what I can, like, everybody who starts their career in news starts on the overnight beat.
Yeah.
So I was covering, again, still just those house fires, car accidents. All the stuff that happens overnight that is like not really positive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like really hard stuff to cover.
It's gruesome sometimes.
Yeah.
And so sad to, like, you're expected to interview people after their house is burned down.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to talk to them. But it's the job.
Right.
And so I was doing all that and just feeling a little burnt out about, like, I went into news because I wanted to tell stories of people, and I wanted to help people understand the communities around them and make some change, like, make this world better together.
That's cool.
And I felt like doing that type of local news, I think local news is incredibly important, but what I was doing wasn't changing anything, right? Nobody drives better because they saw a car accident on the morning news. Yeah. Nobody buys a fire extinguisher because they saw somebody else's house burn down. So it just felt like I was spinning wheels and not making change. And so I gave it all up, and I said, you know what, I still want to do documentary work. And I was looking at LA and I was looking at New York City, and I knew 0 people in New York City and knew 1 person in LA. So I decided to up and move, and I quit my career. And I went out to LA and kind of just started. I was being a PA in Hollywood and started sort of climbing a ladder there of doing PA work and camera assistant work and trying to get into documentaries and also starting to navigate a path now that was taking me into Hollywood filmmaking, which was really exciting. And I ended up joining the Screen Actors Guild, and I got to do a lot of commercials and be in different shows and movies and things. And then a writer's strike happened, and all of the work dried up. But at the same time, I was volunteering and working at the Aquarium of the Pacific, which is the big public aquarium in the Los Angeles area. Okay. Beautiful, one of the best aquariums in the world, I think. And that I started working there just to have a job.
Yeah.
During that writer strike.
During the strike, yeah. Okay.
And during that period, I was working with octopuses and coral and helping with volunteer management and a lot of different jobs. And they started to discover my background in film and television and news. And so then they were asking me to help prepare videos about the education programs and about some of the marketing efforts. And I was directing commercials eventually for the zoo. And then ultimately, or for the aquarium, ultimately they moved me to managing the film program. And we shot, in my time in that role, we shot about 27 short films about different conservation projects that the institution was a part of. And we got to travel all over the world on a series that was a food to table series, but about aquaculture and about the fish farmers of the United States and United States sort of islands and regions and where we work around the world. And
what a cool opportunity.
Oh, dude, it
sounds amazing.
Best. Yeah. Like, getting to snorkel in Hawaii and talk about fish.
And you're doing something you love.
And
learning. I mean, that sounds like the best kind of situation.
It was amazing. It was so amazing. And it really got me passionate about the conservation work even deeper. And I wanted to get a better sense of it. So I went back to school while I was working there, got my master's. Sorry, this is such a long story.
No, keep going. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Got my master's in conservation biology and conservation management and continued to work at the aquarium, but then the Dallas Zoo reached out. And in 2019, I was offered a job to become a conservation manager at the zoo. And I thought marine conservation was going to be my career. I was going to live by the ocean. It's going to be amazing.
Now you're in landlocked Dallas.
Right. And then I thought, well, all right, do I want to do that? But Dallas has been a leader in conservation work for a really long time, the Dallas Zoo. And Fort Worth Zoo as well. And so I started to get really excited about the idea of helping grow the work in Dallas. And so I accepted the job at the end of 2019. Beginning of January, I moved sight unseen to Oak Cliff. I actually
from California to Oak Cliff. There we go.
When I was looking online at apartments and I wanted to live near the zoo because I had a long commute in LA and I never wanted to do that again. And so I was like, what is the closest I can get to the zoo and be a part of the community and be a part of the work that's happening there? And so I found Oak Cliff and I ended up moving to the Bishop Arts area because I thought, oh, perfect. There's so much life happening. There's nightlife. I'll get to meet people. It'll be easy integration into a new community. And I don't know if you remember what happened in 2020. But,
that little thing.
A month later.
Okay,
the world
you landed.
changed.
And so the timing. Goodness.
A crazy time to be introduced to Dallas. But the community here accepted me so wonderfully. I got to meet Jason from Oddfellows. I met Jimmy at Taco y Vino. And the way that they and so many other people in the neighborhood really accepted me in and helped me as a stranger who didn't get the chance to really meet a lot of people.
Just immediately landed and then that happened.
And the world blew up.
That's great to hear. So you said
that's so cool.
Dallas, the conservation at the Dallas Zoo is is well respected.
Yeah.
What does that look like? I mean, for someone who doesn't know about conservation too much, like when I hear that, I'm like, oh, I'm proud that Dallas does that. But what does that mean?
I'm so excited about Dallas Zoo being we are a global international conservation organization. And a lot of people think of the zoo, they think about bringing their family, they think about visiting and having a quick day and getting to see some animals and maybe learn a little bit and off you go. And that is absolutely a part of our job is to help raise awareness and interest. But we work in we work in 23 countries right now. We've got about 40 projects of different species and habitat and community efforts to help people live in harmony with wildlife. And that's sort of the dream is what can we do to help people in every community already know what they want, what they need. And most of the things that we see of why there are issues in species loss and in habitat loss and even in human need is all driven on people's lack of understanding of their role in nature. Nature is literally defined as separate from people. Go to the dictionary and pull it up. It's something other than us.
Wow.
But we are absolutely a part of nature. We don't function without it. It needs us equally. We're a part of this cycle of life. And people not having the greatest understanding of their role and their connection to nature often means an overuse of resources. It means things start to go out of balance. And when people's needs are out of balance, they can't make the choices that we need to be sustainable and to live in harmony with the world around us. And so our conservation work is focused on helping people have their needs met so that the community can do conservation work together, have the capacity to do conservation work together.
I see. So making sure that their needs are met, therefore then they can kind of continue to work on
because
their natural environment.
A great example is we do a project in Botswana for elephants. We helped start an elephant sanctuary for orphaned elephants they've either been found because poaching incidents or drought, some reason that they're no longer with their herd. And this sanctuary we helped start brings those elephants in and tries to raise them, take care of them, and eventually reintroduce them back into the wild. The community in that space used to kill elephants when they would come in their area because elephants are also very dangerous. They're beautiful, wonderful, amazing animals, but they're also moody, and when they're migrating, they want their space, and they will take care of things they consider threats. And so that can be people walking through the same area that elephants are migrating through. So every family in that region has a story of someone in their family who died or was seriously injured, and a lot of times it's children. So they were trying to kill all the elephants.
It's like when you hear that story, it's like, okay, that sounds like a reasonable conclusion, right?
Protect yourself.
You gotta.
If your family's at risk, if you don't have
for sure
what you need, I would absolutely do the same thing.
Right.
So what we did to try and help that situation was focus not on telling everybody you got to stop shooting elephants, you got to stop hurting things, but to focus on how can we help both parties use that space. And so one of the things that we started, the folks kept saying, our kids are unsafe, they can't go to school. They literally take their kids out of school for months at a time because they don't think it's safe to walk
during migration
7 kilometers to school and back. Wow. That's a long way to go, 7 kilometers. So we helped them get a bus system going. So Dallas Zoo helped purchase 2 different buses that our partner organization, Elephant Havens, actually runs and operates every day to take kids to and from school. And so that started to build some affinity between the community and the conservation organization. And we made no asks of just saying, hey, we're here to help. What do you need? What do you see the issues are? Then we saw, water wells are needed. So, all right, let's get some water so you're not having to go as far into dangerous area where there's lions and things that could hurt you. Let's get some water wells for you so you can stay close to home. And so we helped get that installed. And so all of that starts to build a relationship with community. And then they start to, okay, well, what are you here for? Why are you here?
Why are you helping us out so much?
About these things. And so then all the people who work in this organization are locals, and they started sharing their passion of elephants. And it starts to build this great relationship, whereas at the beginning, every day you heard gunshots of people shooting at elephants, trying to scare them off or kill them. Now you rarely hear gunshots at all. And if the community finds elephants, they end up calling our partner organization for help.
Dude, that's amazing.
So it's a total different healing way of taking care of community, which ultimately helps everybody take care of the
it's the relationship with like nature and that community. And you're kind of even just like, how do I do this more in Dallas? I want to get into that more. Yeah. But with that, how is that connected back here in Oak Cliff? Like, it's obviously the zoo is doing it, and like the people and the organizations. Is there any other connections that occur?
So a lot of our education team, who works with tons of different schools in Oak Cliff and in the Dallas-Fort Worth region, they'll build a lot of their programming around the conservation work that we're doing to help sort of engage and teach about that and teach principles of that work. So like when we get awards for doing that work in Botswana. In the beginning, when I came here and said, all right, let's start this in Oak Cliff, people are like, whoa, city, whoa, stay in your lane. Like, that's not your job. And I'm like, we just got an award for this. What are you talking about? Yes, this is our job. It's
awesome.
We have 2,500 species of wildlife in Oak Cliff over the course of a year. Why
can't we focus here?
That's amazing.
27 endangered species in Dallas County. So
seriously,
what can we do to help?
What are some of those? Just for
bats, bald eagles are considered an endangered species that's here. There's, I think it's 3 different species of bats. There's a few different types of fish. There's some amphibians. There's some turtles. So there's lots of life
in our neighborhood.
In Cedar Creek, right around the corner here.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Cedar Creek runs right through, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the big spots. So interesting. Yeah, I mean, in Oak Cliff, like what does that movement look like? Are you kind of, you said you've gotten some pushback, or is it more?
We did at the start. We did at the start, and so we had to kind of slow roll and start helping everybody understand what we were doing externally, and then what can we start rethinking how we operate here at home. And one of the things we've been doing is building relationships with organizations like For Oak Cliff,
nice,
Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce, and really serving to try and help those organizations do what they do and see where we can be a better neighbor. Sort of what I keep saying is like, hey, we live here, we work here. 25% of our Dallas U staff live in Oak Cliff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So we're
I see him around at restaurants all the time.
Yeah, I hope.
We were at Hunky's the other day, and I was like, "There's the Dallas Zoo." And like,
awesome.
they're just saying,
I love that. Yeah.
They were in the Mardi Gras parade. I mean, they were so
that's right.
involved.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was driving the truck.
Were you really?
Oh, okay.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll be at the Pride Parade in June. So
okay.
we,
You're involved.
Yeah, we want to be a part of the community, and we want people to know that we're here.
You're here.
That
yes.
people, and not just that we want to be a part of the community, but the community is welcome. All members of the community are welcome at the Dallas Zoo.
That's
our
awesome.
Staff, in our work, volunteering, all the
That's
programs.
awesome.
That
I love that.
So,
this is part of your job,
please,
community impact, right? So it's obvious why you're so passionate about it.
And I love this whole idea of like, we're starting with the people first that are in the community, trying to assess their needs and see how we can help them so that we can earn some trust and ultimately serve the needs of the conservation in the area. I think that's cool.
Yeah, and like, it's so intertwined, right? Because when I think about trying to do conservation in an urban space, we're thinking about, there's so much concrete and there's so much building that's happening that's changing our landscape. So what can we do to help bring back native trees, native plants that are going to help all those migratory species coming through? What can we do to help with our air quality and our water quality that's so important? Dallas actually has really bad air quality. Like, you don't think about it because we have such great vistas and you can see so far, but Oak Cliff in particular has been really affected by air quality. It's part of why there's such high asthma issues for children in the Oak Cliff area.
Fascinating.
Okay.
And so what can we do to make this healthier? Because if it's healthy for people, it's also healthy for wildlife. Right?
Yeah, we're all connected.
So how do we fix that? Part of that is those native plants, native trees. It's like ways to use nature to clean the air and clean the space around us. Our drought issues, our erosion issues in Cedar Creek and in other areas of our community, whenever the rains come through, can help be controlled by taking out the invasive tree species that don't help retain that water and putting back in the native tree species and the native plant species that would help hold that soil and hold that water in and really help continue to develop this area to grow green again. We could be one of the most sustainable cities in the world. It's really easy. District 3 has the most green space in all of Dallas, too, which I'd love to say. Oak Cliff, go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I mean, we always, Oak Cliff, Dallas in general, but like when you think of Oak Cliff, I do think of like hills and like trees, and it's in our name, and so it's proud to be able to be like, District 3 has so much of this. And park space too. There's a lot of park space in District 1 and below too. No, that's awesome.
This episode of The Hidden City is brought to you by Texas Talks, a monthly lecture series presented by Wax Space focused on sharing ideas for the neighborhood. Started in 2019 as a way to bring neighbors together to share ideas, learn from experiences, and expand the Oak Cliff mind. Check out the full library of past talks at thewaxspace.com/Texas Talks and join us for our next live event with Kate McLeod on May 16th at 9 a.m. at Wax Space.
It's really cool to like just hear you talk about it. I'm curious what you would say to somebody, because I'm sure there's times when you run into people that maybe are jaded about, I'm in a city. They really aren't connected to nature all the time. And it's something that in a city, you do get separated from nature.
Absolutely.
What ways can you like bring somebody to an encounter with nature? Or how do you kind of like remind them that, no, this is really important?
Yeah. I think one of the things that I want to build back for the zoo is kind of disappeared during COVID because everybody had closed or had to retract staff and all sorts of changes. But to help bring people back out into nature spaces, because nature's all around us. We've got the Trinity River.
Right.
It's like you can see it from so many different places in the city.
Amazing too. Yeah.
All these creek systems, trying to find ways to help people understand nature in their backyard and in their neighborhoods is sort of a first step. And so I love birding. And I never used to before COVID.
No,
I thought birds were awesome. I don't know. Something about COVID turned all of us into birders. A lot of us into birders.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And
our grandparents loved birds.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It was. They definitely like shared some of that passion with us.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, seeing woodpeckers, we'd go up to Indiana and see those, like hearing them.
They had like so many hummingbird feeders out, and they would just, and you'd
Yeah.
sit at their window and it'd just be an amazing
experience.
experience.
Right there. Okay, birds.
Well,
Anyways,
birds, right?
bird-
Yeah. So I think like if you take someone to Trinity River and you take them in the morning and go do some birding with them, and give both kids and adults the chance to like stop, and because we're always rushing, like we're speeding through life, and how can you stop and take a moment to observe the world around you? And even if you just do that in your backyard, you'll start to notice like the insects and the plants, and these plants are different than these plants, and, and that bird is different from that bird, and start to recognize differences and sounds and smells. And humans are so tangible, right? Like we love touching, tasting, feeling things. And so trying to help people connect in a really physical way to nature is part of building that love. And I think that's why a zoo is important too.
Yeah.
Because I mean, as a filmmaker, or a former filmmaker at the very least, I love video. I love trying to showcase like the world around us. But there's nothing like seeing something and hearing it and almost feeling the vibrations of life that's around you. And I think that's where a zoo can really play a big role in helping build a relationship and an empathy with nature.
I like it's almost what I'm hearing from you is it's like an invitation to slow down a little bit. And we were in the office earlier, and he said he loved the sign these are the good old days. And it's like it's just like, hey, like we can rush through so much stuff, but like slow down for a little bit, kind of reconnect with nature in some of these ways. And you're right. I think I've got a couple of young kids, and we were planting strawberries the other day, and like just getting in the soil, like they're like seeing these little bugs over here, and then this little like critter over here, and you're just like, there's a dove that landed in our tree, and like they are just like, they're pushing me to like observe better, I think too, and so that's been like a fun. I hear that invitation, like go to the Trinity River early and see what kind of birds are out there, like. It's a nice invitation, and I feel like the zoo's definitely one of those invitations to do all this as well.
Ah, thanks. Yeah. There's a really interesting thing happening in hospitals right now about a prescription for time in nature.
Oh, wow.
And that's something I've been thinking about and talking to some of the folks at Methodist about how can we help serve in that space? How can we help be a nature space that people... Like if you need to prescribe someone a chance to sit and observe and experience nature, how can we help be that for the community and for those people who, in a health way, really need that? What can we do to help provide that through the zoo?
That's fascinating.
I love that connection. That'd be really fun to see.
I love that that's a prescription too.
I know.
Like,
Isn't it
and it's like kind of in one way you're like, duh, like you gotta be out in nature. You have to literally get grounded with nature, but also like hilarious in some ways. It's like, no, this is actually getting prescribed from doctors to people.
There's a whole connection there.
That's cool.
That's awesome. There's a neighborhood farm over here called Elmwood Farms, and it's great. And that was one of the fun things that like when that started going was just like, at least I can speak for myself. It's like, it was during the COVID time too, but it was just like, we're all in our houses, we're all in these things, but it's like, here's a way to like get into the dirt, get out by yourself. And it felt healthy just to like, I don't know, experience a little bit of that. Especially during that time of like, I don't know, intense.
When we're all like being told to stay inside.
And being connected to something real, it felt like. So, Chris, and this is just so awesome learning about conservation here in Oak Cliff. What are some ways people can kind of like join alongside you? And then also, I just want to know more about Cedar Creek too. It seems like such a lifeline throughout Oak Cliff, and a lot of action happens within that. And so, what are some ways people can kind of join in, and then talking through that?
Well, actually, coming up on Earth Day, I don't know when this episode will be out, but on Earth Day, we are doing a creek cleanup. So we're letting people come into the creek with us and take some action there. We're going to be instituting more of that type of work with our community partners in the future, of trying to do more. We used to do pre-COVID and a little bit post-COVID, a lot of park cleanups and activities that people could come do with us. And we're working towards bringing that back online again.
Cool.
But even just through like different volunteer programs that our zoo has so many volunteer programs that people can participate in to help educate people around conservation work, to participate in the conservation work with us, whether it's on site in some of the animal care operations and we're releasing Texas native wildlife all the time into different parts of the state. And so volunteers help us with that.
And that's just going on the website and getting plugged in on that kind of stuff.
You can go connect with our volunteer team, volunteer services team, and learn more about that. Our volunteers, they have their own committee, and they love telling these stories and trying to get people excited about how they could participate. There's also a lot of programmatic things that we're doing. One of them is called the Lights Out Dallas program. So there's a Lights Out movement across the country focused on birds. I can always bring it back to birds now.
Yes, there you go.
So we get around, there are billions of birds that migrate through the country.
Billions with a B.
Billions with a B that migrate through the country.
That's cool.
North and south, twice a year. They go from as far as the Arctic down into South America. They'll come from South America and back up again. And Texas is one of those places where the bulk of those birds go through. So we are such a vital space, not just for our state and for our country, but for North America and South America.
I learned this through a movie with Owen Wilson called The Big Year. It was a birding movie. And you're right. Was it like Jack Black in there or
Jack
something?
Black was in
it's
that
out of
one,
control. Everyone should watch it. But they were all going to Texas to see all the birds kind of go south. It was hilarious.
It's incredible. And a lot of those birds come through Oak Cliff. So it's
do
another,
they?
if you want,
cool.
Hyper good birding can happen right here in Oak Cliff.
There we go.
If people want to start their life list.
No, that's it. Shout out Mike Knott. He's always looking at birds.
Mike would love that.
Yeah.
So there's like a bird highway in the sky over Oak Cliff
in
Dallas area.
Yeah, and they migrate at night. So during the day is when we typically see the birds. So a lot of times people think, oh, birds are safe during the day, but they're kind of resting and eating during the day, but at night is when they're taking off and they're going en masse. And we're talking in millions at a time are going off. And
that's hard to believe.
And one of the, isn't it? Like
it's like weird to think about birds flying in the night.
I'm sleeping and there's millions of birds. It's wild.
There's I'll have to send you a link. There's a thing called Birdcast, and it takes radar and it can show you like the masses of birds and where they're moving and when they're moving. And that's actually really useful for knowing when we need to turn our lights out.
That makes sense, yeah.
So those birds can be affected by the light because light sources, like the lights we have here in this room, are unnatural. Right? The natural light is the sun, fire, the moon. And so that's what nature uses as a guiding point. And so when we have these bright areas of cities, it can sort of throw off migration patterns. It can confuse things.
Sure.
In New York City, there's a lot of evidence of when they had the big pillars of light after where the 9/11 towers were, the Twin Towers, that those would actually bring birds in and they would start to get caught in this loop by the thousands and end up like exhausting themselves and crashing.
Around the light.
Just because of the light,
Wow.
And so now they actually make that light intermittent so that if birds do end up getting caught in it, they can move.
They understand to get out. Oh, wow. Fascinating.
And so Dallas and
human
Houston,
interaction. That's crazy.
Yeah, like we are so connected to the world around us. And Dallas and Houston are the second and third, respectively, or it keeps going back and forth about which one's 2 and which one's 3, but we are the brightest, one of the top 3 brightest cities in the country. More than Vegas. We are
more than Vegas.
More than Vegas. We are one of the brightest cities in the country.
I assume the whole metroplex, right?
Yep.
Like it's just a huge beacon.
The whole thing. But it does really start to conglomerate around our big city space. Downtown space.
I do think about. I used to live downtown, and it just seemed like for 5 years there, everybody was like covering their entire buildings with lights.
Oh yeah,
like it just was
beautiful.
And it is cool. It's fun to look at. But I'm like,
skyline.
Oh yeah, I can see how this could be a problem.
Yeah. And so what we ask people to do is to turn your lights out during migration season from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Any security lights need to stay on. We need to be at safety. We need to be able to see where we're going when we're driving. But there's a lot of extra light that we don't necessarily need pointed up, that we don't need to have on. And if we turn that off between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m., we can minimize the number of birds that are being drawn into city spaces. And ultimately what they're doing is they end up crashing into glass buildings, glass structures. And so all the glass that's in the downtown area. we have a volunteer program that people can participate in that help us during migration season go survey through downtown. We have a 7-mile loop that we do every morning.
Wow.
And we go looking for injured or killed birds from these building strikes. The injured ones we try to rescue. The deceased ones we end up recording, and we capture all this information.
Wow.
And we work with Texas A&M to do research on those birds to understand disease movement and all sorts of other things.
Wow.
But the public can participate in both helping advocate for lights going out and in these different surveys to understand that life that's moving into the downtown space.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great movement, and that's something that's happening across the nation too, right?
It's an international thing, and we're really the Lights Out Dallas and Lights Out Houston programs are driving the Lights Out Texas movement, and it's growing. And San Antonio's doing it now, Austin's doing it now, El Paso's starting some work in it. So it's
good.
So really, it's a great
It's
movement.
a big campaign,
and like so easy. All you gotta do is turn those
lights off.
Right? Close your blinds if you because sometimes people work at night, right? So close the blinds so we're not putting excess light outside. And,
It's so cool. Well, Chris, speaking of international things, you've spent a lot of time international.
I have. I'm so lucky.
I mean, you've been to Belize, Mongolia, the Amazon, I learned.
Yes, Amazon, Costa Rica.
Tell me about the Amazon. What was that experience like? Because I think of it as like sort of the epicenter for like a natural space. It's just like untouched.
Part of the lungs of the planet, right?
Right.
Yeah. It is, well, actually, I love that you said the term untouched, because oftentimes we think about untouched as a place without human impact, without human life. But the reality is, aside from like the Antarctic,
humans are everywhere.
And it's okay.
It's not a problem necessarily.
Humans live in different parts of the world because it's totally possible to live in harmony with the environment around us. Traditional ecological knowledge, indigenous people have taught us that for centuries. It can work. And so we just have to get back to understanding how to do that.
Kind of get back to our roots a little bit. What does that look like?
Well, so the Amazon is such a cool place because there are like so many species and so many things to see, and like such evidence of loss and of like disaster. When you think about wildfires, you think about gold mining. And
lumber.
And lumber, things, gold mining. So I was in the Peruvian Amazon, and we lived on this, on a farm, essentially right alongside the river. There are no roads. So you take the river is the road. So you take your boats up and down the river to get places, and we would you cut off in the little side streams.
The river is the road. It's like a book. That's a short film.
That's a short film.
Yeah, the river is the road. Patent pending.
That's right.
Cedar Creek. The river is the road.
Oh, actually,
I know.
I like where you're going with
Keep
that
going.
one. So we're living there, and we're studying how different wildlife species are interacting with humans in that space and how humans are using that space. And so with this farm, what the family who owned the farm was trying to do was to show their neighbors in their community, here's how we can restore original forest, but also have agricultural use, also be able to have animals, like farm animals in this space, but do it in a way that we're still protecting tree spaces and natural sort of flora spaces so that all the different wildlife species can use them too. And it becomes a food resource. Like the jungle is a giant farm. Like you can eat so much of the stuff in the jungle. Even in just our natural forests here, there's so much that we could eat that we don't know anymore. We got to spend a lot of time experience all of that. And it was beautiful. Like I got to see, giant river otters. We got to see in this like 2-acre plot of land that we would survey every morning. We saw over 200 different species of birds just in that 2 acres. Like there are states in this country that don't have 200 species of native birds. So like to think about in a 2-acre space, there's that many species
teeming with life. It's amazing.
Yeah, it was incredible. But the thing that really brought me back to like how can we help people in this space was gold mining. So like Peru is full of gold. And the mountains are full of gold. It's why so many civilizations were able to be so big and strong. There was part of the gold, and it comes from the mountains. And there's ore there, and it flakes and breaks apart inside the streams and rivers, and makes its way down into the big Amazonian rivers. And we are on a river called the Madre de Dios, and the river, the sand is full of gold like specks, and so it's so small that you can't sift like the gold out. You have to come up with a way to capture those flakes. And someone along the way realized that mercury captures and connects like bonds.
Oh, interesting.
With
Okay.
gold. And so what unscrupulous organizations, groups, cartels, you name it, were doing, were hiring local people, giving them mercury and paying them to sift their stuff out, mix it with mercury, and then collect the gold and sell the gold at a pennies to these cartels and organizations that were making millions. And the most tragic piece was seeing a family that was living on a raft. It was 2 adults and 3 children living on a raft, and they had a big vat in the center. So they had their little hut on the raft, and they had a big vat. And they would take the sludge, the mud and everything into the vat, and then they would pour the mercury in there, and then in their bare legs and bare feet would go in and stomp to mix all that together, right? And then they would have to pour out some of the water, so it's getting into the water streams, getting the fish that people are eating, it's getting into the air, it's getting on their skin. It's just like deadly
like
for these poor
skin
families.
contact too.
But they're willing to do it. We talked to one man, and he said, I need to feed my kids. And so he didn't want to do logging. It was too dangerous. And this was the way he thought that he could help provide for his family. And so then it became, well, what can we do? And this situation is far from resolved.
Right.
The question became, all right, well, what can we do to help families like that not see this as the best way to make money? Not see the illegal logging and the illegal mining as the best way to make money to take care of their families. And how can we help, again, a community who knows what they want to do, who knows their area? How can we help them get the resources and the support to build up their community, to have the jobs, the careers, the education opportunities, all those things to make it so that no longer becomes a focus. And so that's what some of the other conservation organizations that we connect with and that work in that region are starting to work on.
Wow.
Dallas itself is not involved in that, Dallas Zoo, but San Antonio Zoo is deeply involved in that.
Oh, cool.
So I love getting to work with all these different zoos who are, like, this is the type of work we're trying to do internationally and domestically.
That's neat. Yeah.
It's awesome hearing the collaboration happening
I was just thinking
within
that too.
Texas. But as you were talking about all this too, I always love asking this. Is there any zoos that or like models of excellence that you're like, man, I love what this group's doing. I want to bring this to the Dallas Zoo in some way, or I'm inspired by this.
Gosh, I can point to so many things. There's places like the Point Defiance Zoo and Aquarium in Seattle. It's actually in Tacoma. They are working really closely to restore native species with the indigenous communities up there. So things like bison, black bear, or grizzly bears, some other native North American species that they're working with the indigenous groups who, they have spiritual and cultural ties to these species. And so they're really working in that space to really connect there, which I am so inspired by, and I would love eventually to help do a lot of that same type of work here in Dallas, because we know this was not just a hub for settlers who came this way, but this was a meeting point of indigenous communities who,
That's cool.
like many who have been here before us along the Trinity River system. And in this Oak Cliff area. And so, like, what can we do to get back to helping support some of those people, return some power and return some ownership of what
agency and stories of some of that. Calling, like diving into the history of some of that too. Is like what was around and how is that connected? That's interesting. That's in Tacoma, you said?
It's in Tacoma, and they're doing great work like that. You can point to some of the big ones like San Diego Zoo's doing really interesting, like biobanking and working on genetics and DNA. And
we got to get into it.
Doug, ask your question. I know you've been waiting to ask this one.
I'm just like so curious, Chris. You might hate it or love it. But since you're in conservation, I just listened to an episode of this Ben Lamb Colossus thing.
Colossal.
Colossal, yes. That's wild.
Can you explain?
Fascinating, right?
Yeah, so
kind of explain what it is.
At least from my take, and I'm curious what you're gonna say. But like he's on a campaign to de-extinct animals. and then also like tie that in with conservation. Actually, they just brought back the dire wolf, is what they're saying, and he was talking. Yeah, it was wild. Yeah. After 10,000 years or something, and so Tasmanian devil, the dodo bird. There's all these like, I guess, ancient DNA that they want to bring back in some way. But yeah, what is?
How does that fit into conservation?
Yeah. Dude, it's so interesting, and it's a topic constantly in my networks and in the conservation world, particularly the zoo and aquarium conservation.
Well, and he's in Dallas. Like I think
it's a Dallas organization. In fact, well, and I'll tell you, I'm friends with Matt James, who's one of the guys who's leading the conservation of this.
Cool. Okay.
You should bring him on the podcast. He lives in Oak Cliff.
No way. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Perfect.
Love that.
They're doing some really interesting stuff, and there's a lot of going back and forth of where people are trying to decide what their stance is on it. I think some of the things that they're working on, things like the Tasmanian tiger, the dodo, those are really interesting to me because those are species that went extinct because of people.
Of humans. Right? That's what he was saying with the Tasmanian devil. It was the Australian government, or no, was it one of the governments like had like his like, hey, take these out, like almost like a quota or something.
I do feel like that one too was the one that I remember growing up most vividly, being like, this is coming and this is the last one. Okay, now it's gone.
Right. And disappeared in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
People we know's lifetime.
Yeah. People we know. Yeah.
So I think it's really interesting to think about new ways we can try to approach conservation and bring species back. I don't think we should try to get into Jurassic Park and start bringing dinosaurs back and things that have been extinct not because of human cause, but you know.
Yeah.
Just because we can doesn't mean we should, right? Isn't that the line from the movie?
That whole framework.
Yeah.
But generally, you're excited about it, or
I'm really interested in some of the processes that they're developing.
Yeah.
So there's things like there's an amphibian extinction crisis happening right now with lots of frogs and toad species disappearing across the world, and even species that I worked with in Costa Rica 8-ish years ago are no longer there. Like this frog is
wild.
That we used to see all the time at our research site. No one has seen for years now. Okay. There's a lot of reasons that could be happening. We're still trying to understand it. It could be, likely climate change is part of the process as temperatures changing, as food resources are changing because of all that. But also there's disease that's rapidly spreading through amphibian populations. And so it's an interesting idea that you could click on or off a gene in something that could make it more resistant to a disease.
Right.
And so, or that you could come up with, some of the things that they're doing are trying to come up with ways to breed more things faster.
Yeah.
And so, like, could you, if you're trying to repopulate something.
They were talking about the red wolves in the United States. So, like, hey, you could repopulate. I guess it was an application for this.
So I'm interested in questions. Like, I have tons of questions, and there's a lot of ethical things. Like, we have to make sure, and Matt is thinking about those things, and I don't know what the answers to those are. But
it's like a fascinating thing. It's to what extent do humans actually get involved in the survival of a species or the repopulation of a species, and is that even humanity's role? Like, is it something that we should be doing? And like, where do you know where the line is of like this is a natural end to the species, and maybe that's okay. Versus like,
because there is an evolution,
right? Yeah. So like, versus like, we should bring this back because we think it's cool.
There's a million questions. Yeah. This is what the founder Ben Lamb and Joe Rogan were talking about the other night. They were literally like, "Hey, we're just going to focus on the science and doing this." He's like, he said the religious and philosophical like takes on this stuff. We're kind of like
separating them
a little bit. They were kind of like
hard to do.
I know.
It's all tired.
I know. But it was like they kind of weren't touching that part of the discussion.
They didn't want to talk about those sorts of things.
I think so, but it is. Yeah. We're all connected in this like crazy way. So
and selfishly, I'm like, I wouldn't mind seeing a woolly mammoth.
Oh,
be kind of cool.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I I tease Matt all the time. I'm like, is it really going to be a woolly mammoth?
Right,
or is it just an Asian elephant?
Yeah,
furry? Like,
exactly.
Well,
yeah.
that was some of the
lots of
discussion for
questions.
sure.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
A good
topic.
time to be in conservation. I guess.
Well, I was just going to say,
Yeah.
we're talking about what is our role in helping bring species back, and I think that's a key part of a zoo. Like,
Right.
We have experts in animal care and raising animals, and so we have the ability to breed things and get them back in the wild. So like this tattoo I have on my arm, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is a whooping crane. Do you guys know about whooping cranes?
A little bit. Tell us more.
So it's the largest bird in North America. It's beautiful, beautiful crane, bright white body, big red spot in its head. They are a Texas species. They live in Canada and Texas. There's a population that goes back and forth every year.
Cool.
There was a point in our recent history where there was roughly 14 of these birds left in the world.
14.
14.
Whoa.
And because of the work of the U.S. federal government, the Canadian government, and conservation organizations like International Crane Foundation and zoos helped bring these birds back. And so now there's roughly 800 or so birds.
Wow.
Back,
So
and to the point that we're seeing growth, right?
We're
We're seeing
not only did it get saved, it's like on the
It's thriving.
It's on the offense. A little bit.
We're seeing more birds. We're seeing opportunities, and your Dallas Zoo has a breeding center for whooping cranes offsite. Okay. We don't have it publicly visible. It's actually at Samuel Farms, which is about 20 minutes east.
Yeah. We grew up going to Samuel Farms.
Did you?
I used to make candles.
Yeah, we were
over
making
there.
candles.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
the city gave us a little section of property there we put in, we fenced it off.
That's awesome.
It's an area where we have 10 whooping cranes that we're breeding and releasing back out into the wild. And I love this story because of the whooping crane, because it really was all about one man's passion in the very beginning. A man named George Archibald. He actually worked with the San Antonio Zoo and had gotten a bird called Tex. And this bird Tex, he worked with and helped this bird understand that it was a crane. Like the bird basically identified with people and wanted to be around people. And so essentially George was chosen as the bird's mate, right? Like the bird chose George. And George chose to live with this bird. Like there was a shed and in their property that they had in Baraboo, Wisconsin. And they did artificial insemination, and that bird raised over 150 whooping cranes.
150.
150 came out of Tex, and this story was so inspiring. It got George Archibald onto like the Johnny Carson show, where he got to talk about this, and he also got to talk about the tragedy of Tex dying sadly, and really get people excited about this conservation movement. And I remember as a kid reading about this in Ranger Rick and National Geographic. Why in the world would a guy choose to live in a shed with a bird?
Right.
It made sense to me.
Yeah, totally.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a weird and interesting story where you're like, whoa, what?
Yeah. It kind of cued me in.
Yeah.
So then like growing up, I kept often thinking about that one. And when people would say, oh, what's your favorite conservation story? That's one that would always pop to mind. Well, when I first started at the Dallas Zoo, in my first week here at the Dallas Zoo, George Archibald was coming to visit the zoo.
Get out of here. That's amazing.
And a couple years prior, I held an event at the Aquarium of the Pacific back in the LA area called Tattoos for a Porpoise. I was involved in conservation work.
Love it.
That's great.
I was involved in conservation work for the most endangered marine mammal in the world called the vaquita, which is in the Gulf of California and Mexico. Okay. Anyway, we did a fundraiser for that, and the artist who I helped organize this event with did this tattoo of a whooping crane for me after I told him the story of George Archibald and the 14 birds and how the hundreds more. So then George comes to visit Dallas Zoo, and here I am, walking in excited to meet this man. He sees the tattoo, becomes like a friend. Like that was the thing that he's like,
he immediately
was
like, you
want to tell this story.
Yeah.
And so he is now a buddy of mine that I have this.
That's incredible.
That, I looked up to, he's Jane Goodall to me.
Yeah. For sure.
To see him do. And this last January, actually, I got to go to Korea with him as we did some work with Korean conservation on 3 different crane species in Korea, and even got to go a tad bit of the way into North Korea and get to see This
Seriously.
like it's crazy. North
Chris
Korea
has the
and
coolest
South
job.
Korea.
Yeah.
I am so thankful.
Casually was
Yeah.
like, I went to North Korea.
Yeah, I'm checking out some cranes in North
bonkers.
Korea.
It's bonkers.
I
The
bet.
opportunities I've had. I'm so thankful to the zoo for embracing my crazy ideas
That's
and letting me.
That's
Wait,
amazing.
try
what
to
was
make
North
opportunity.
Korea like?
Well, so we saw
Yeah.
it from. We didn't get deep into the country
Sure,
by any means.
sure.
We saw the bulk of what we saw was from the hillside,
Right.
and you could see we're in the demilitarized zone, and in that space you can go into both North Korea and South Korea, and so we saw on this hillside this town that had like movie theater, had grocery stores, had apartments and houses and schools and parks and like you name what you want in
it
your
was there.
ideal community, you could see it from this hillside.
Co-working space and brewery.
Yeah, there was exactly. There was the Korean wax space, and
Hey, a little expansion
you
project.
should see about why that's there. But what was crazy is there were no people. There was
Yeah.
not even like leaves blowing on the street. It was
Isn't it?
devoid
Oh, that's
of everything.
wild,
And so we're standing there looking at it, and one of the South Korean military folks who was in the space with us says they called it a. I'm forgetting my word, but they essentially said it was like a town for show.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that when
A
major
model town or something. or-
Somebody shows up.
yeah,
then-
when major international people are in the demilitarized zone and the country knows about it, or if they know people are coming into North Korea, they will just bring in people. And it will be like the Truman Show.
Yeah.
Suddenly, trucks going in and out of grocery stores, children on the playgrounds, families going in and out of school.
That's wild. That's so eerie.
Yeah, it's such a weird, a crazy thing. And you can see, so in the demilitarized zone, there's also like, there's fencing everywhere. I mean, giant fencing. Yeah. And you can see these huge sound towers with giant speakers, and they're blasting at each other. And on one side, you're hearing like this, what sounds to me like an angry male Korean voice. Essentially, or the interpreters told us they were saying things like, don't trust your government, to the South Koreans. Don't trust your government. They're lying to you. You're in danger. Like, don't believe what they're telling you. All this kind of like propaganda stuff. And then on the other side, from the South Koreans to North Korea, you're hearing K-pop, and you're hearing like a female voice that's saying, "We love you. We want to reunify. You are welcome here." And like just two very antithetical, and like sirens on this side.
Dude,
just
I've never
crazy.
heard this. That
Yeah,
is
that's
wild.
so
When we
interesting.
arrived, it was the craziest thing. We got to the demilitarized zone, and like you can't walk off the path in the demilitarized zone. There's
Yeah,
still
it's like-
landmines everywhere.
Oh,
So they're
seriously,
like,
yeah.
don't walk away from the barbed wire. You're like, okay, like,
Yeah.
I will say as close
Don't
as
have
I
to
can.
ask me twice.
Yeah.
But it was like foggy, and then you're hearing like this ethereal like K-pop music.
Man, what
and you're
a-
also hearing like this siren off in the distance over here, and you're like, what is war happening right now? Like,
Yeah.
should we go? What's happening?
Man, what an incredible experience. That's so cool. Today's show is brought to you by Oak Cliff Brewing Co. Are you interested in unwinding and connecting with neighbors over a great beer? Then go visit Oak Cliff Brewing Co. They've got a great tap room with all sorts of great beers on tap. It's a full production brewery here in the heart of Oak Cliff. Visit oakcliffbrewing.com to find out what's on tap right now and where you can find fresh beer made right here in Oak Cliff.
Chris, this is wild. South Korea, North Korea. I can't believe the Dallas Zoo like got you into this like moment in life. Are there any other stories that are just like, I can't believe this is happening, or I've like interacted at the zoo with this thing, and I never would have thought this. But
I never have I ever. No.
yeah, exactly.
I never
lived in a shack with
crane.
Wait, which by the way, with the cranes, didn't we go see a crane migration in Indiana with our grandparents as well?
And I wonder if it was that.
I'm wondering if it was the whooping crane. Anyways,
You might have, yes.
we need to look
Sandhills
that
and
up.
whooping cranes.
Sandhills, yeah.
That
was it.
is 100%.
Man.
Wow, I
Yeah.
love that.
Cool.
Dude,
Well,
anyways, good
so
memory. Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
advocate that we all go down to Port Aransas, Texas,
Dude,
in
let's do
February
it.
next
Let's
year.
go, Chris.
Because the whooping cranes
I'm
come
in.
down, and there's a whooping crane festival to celebrate it, and we always speak at that event, and we have lots of Dallas
That
stuff
is
happening
awesome.
there.
We should do
That's
that.
amazing.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
need to
okay.
get the
We
word
should
out.
come
on
do
Organize
that
a
stuff,
trip.
too,
I like it.
Wax
Yeah.
space.
Ooh, yeah, wax space trip. Absolutely, we could help
I'm
organize
in.
that.
I'm
Yeah.
in.
That'd be really cool.
But yeah, I mean, this is just wild hearing your stories.
Oh,
and
yes,
like,
that's right, yeah.
is there anything that pops to mind? Like,
I never thought that I would be involved in working in the wildlife crime space. So, we have developed over the last several years a really deep relationship with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Okay.
And the Texas border, and Texas in particular, is a shockingly fascinating area in the world for wildlife crime. So animals and animal parts are trafficked at an incredibly heavy rate through Texas. In fact, we're one of the top 4 locations in the world, in the country, for animals being trafficked. And we're talking about monkeys and amphibians and birds and reptiles and tigers. Probably you name it. There's all sorts of species being trafficked through Texas. And a lot of North American species of turtles and birds and things that are being brought in and then out.
So they're being brought through Texas?
Yeah,
You're saying
things are passing through Texas. Things are being brought in for ownership and here in Oak Cliff. There are cases in the news where you can learn about tigers being found in people's backyards, chimpanzees being found in horrible situations.
Why do you think that is in Texas? I mean, is it?
We have some looser laws about animal ownership compared to other states, and so I think that's part of it. But also our proximity to an international border
makes sense.
So, species like box turtles and tortoises, some different tortoise species, as well as an intense, crazy, shocking amount of spider monkeys, babies being transported in and out of Texas, in both directions of the border and then out into different states. And those spider monkeys are primarily for pet ownership, which is a terrible pet. Like if I could give anybody one animal to never have as a pet, it's a primate, because the social needs, the animal welfare needs of those things are so high. And people are not equipped to provide what those animals need. Not without more monkeys. They need their group. And so, like, U.S. Fish and Wildlife is finding spider monkeys in trunks of cars, in backpacks. They're finding, turtles in mugs, hidden inside of cars, hidden inside of boxes.
There's a lot of movement.
And there's so much movement, but they're law enforcement officers, so they are skilled at finding these things and going after the people who are committing the crime, but they are not animal care experts. So there have been literal moments where an agent is holding a bag with a big snake in it and is calling, desperately trying to get a hold of zoos, aquariums, anybody who can tell you, hey, I have this animal. I don't know what it is, and it could be a cobra, it could be like highly venomous. Who knows? But they're not equipped to take care of that animal and to protect themselves.
They're looking for some expert to speak into this, because they're just coming.
Makes sense.
They're coming face to face with these problems.
Right, and they're dealing with it, needing to take care of an animal at the same time as they're needing to process a criminal or go after, do the investigation, and so we have become really close allies and partners with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, with Border Patrol and Homeland Security and TSA and DPD and Texas Parks and Wildlife. You name the
that's a whole connection point there,
because we can help take care of the animals. We have the skills to know how to take care of those babies, to take care of the injured animals, the sick animals that are in this process of trafficking. And so they're looking to zoos and aquariums, and Dallas Zoo has become kind of a hub of care for that. And we're in the process right now of trying to help establish a confiscation network, which means that as law enforcement confiscates these animals, they'll look to us to help find the right places, the right accredited and trained, certified individuals and organizations who can help care for those animals during the law proceedings, the legal proceedings. Until then, those animals can be taken to sanctuaries or zoos or somewhere, because most countries don't want them back.
Right.
Interesting.
It costs too much. They're worried about disease transfer. So once an animal is caught in a trafficking situation, it's unlikely that it could ever go back into the wild. And so what do you do?
You talk to the animal care, like what you're talking.
And so that's become like a huge part of our work, which I never ever thought that would be something I would be involved in. But like to the point that now we're in us, places like Texas State Aquarium are starting to get significant amounts of money to help get the resources for the facilities
to handle this type of stuff.
Because we weren't built with the plan to have a behind-the-scenes animal welfare area that you could help take care of these animals. Wow. And so that's something that's becoming a part of the work of a zoo.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. It's something you probably wouldn't, like you said, you would never have guessed unless you got into that situation.
Yeah.
Well, to switch gears just slightly, we talked a lot about your filmmaking, storytelling, or a little bit about it. I'd love to hear more about it, actually. Yeah. But one thing that comes to mind for me is there a favorite film or documentary that you would point people to say, hey, this is a great example of storytelling in the conservation world?
I mean, anything Sir David Attenborough does, it's always like,
of course.
Let me hear that British voice.
Yes.
That's right.
It's
so
perfect.
Good.
It's perfect. Yeah.
We talked off camera a little bit about Deep in the Heart, which is a great film about Texas conservation by Ben Masters.
Yeah.
I think any film that's going to really go into story and the why of like what does it mean to save a space and a species and the people that are connected to those. Yeah. So that's what I'm always looking for in a conservation film. And I think Planet Earth, those series do a lot of really good work in that. We actually helped produce a short film about the Lights Out program. I should have thought about that earlier.
Oh, that's great.
That was done in conjunction with Cornell University.
Cool.
And I'll send you the link. We don't have it on the Dallas Zoo website, but if you search for Lights Out Dallas film, it's online. People can watch it for
we'll post
free.
to it. Yeah,
we can.
It's a great film about that wildlife migration and the people and sort of the work that so many Dallas and Houston institutions are doing to try and to protect those species and the community where we live.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
One thing I want to plant this bug in people's ear because I want to connect with the Oak Cliff Film Festival.
Yeah.
My hope is that I can get the Dallas Zoo to sponsor like a nature film award.
Oh, and so easy. We'll
really
text you to Brock after.
Yes, perfect. Yes, I'm like trying to find the right connection.
Oh yeah.
Because I would love to help do like a youth film award and like an adult film award for nature films and storytelling about community and nature and the relationship.
Well,
that's a great idea.
And the other person you should connect with too, and we can talk more about it offline, but Tyler Sharp and all the Modern Huntsman publication and conservation they're doing. Yeah. He's in Oak Cliff. We'll probably have him on at some point.
Cool.
So
we should. Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the community impact, man. That's just how you're thinking about it. So
thank you.
Well, Chris, man, this has been a joy. I feel like the Dallas Zoo is a jewel, and it's in our neighborhood, and it's huge. And I want people to come and see it and interact. Is there anything they should know coming up, or ways to get connected?
Gosh, there's so much to say. I barely touched on what it is to take care of animals in the institution and all the different education programs.
We'll have back on.
I have to bring more people on to tell you some of those stories.
Come back over, and we'll chat more about it.
But we do have a brand new butterfly exhibit that just opened because we do a lot of monarch butterfly conservation. So we built a butterfly aviary. So it just opened last week. People can come and walk through our aviary with I think it's hundreds of butterflies in there.
Everyone get down to the zoo.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. I like it.
That's awesome.
There's a local school that built a lot of the art installation for us there too, and there's a lot of playgrounds, a lot of fun stuff to do with your family, and
awesome.
Those types of things all help
connect with nature.
This conservation work.
I love it.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for coming on. It's great to connect with you.
It's my honor. Thank you. This is so fun.
Thanks, Chris. Hey, thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Hidden City. We hope you discovered something about Oak Cliff that you didn't know. If you enjoyed the show, I hope you subscribe to it on YouTube and then follow us on any of the podcasting platforms. Also, if you enjoyed it, please share with a friend. And thanks so much for tuning in.